breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Warm and friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Johnny Venezia. He does such great work over at Rotowire. On top of that, I know that he's doing an amazing job with the Breaking Bet podcast as well. We're going to be chatting it up with him about just some of the features that he's taking a look at coming into the upcoming season. He does a great job in terms of spotting a lot of value with regards to the Cy Young Award along with the Rookie of the Year Award. So we'll be chatting about that, taking a look at a few teams that he sees some upside with as well. So we're going to have a good chat there in segment number 2 in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this baseball Saturday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, do have 1 or 2 ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @G_D1. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. You rate this podcast 5 stars. It's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but had a fun day of baseball on Friday. Let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Giants still have not scored a run this far this season. 3-0, the Yankees get the job done as Cam Schlittler, 5 1/3 innings scoreless, gives up just 1 hit. From there, you have Fernando Cruz, a pair of outs on the bullpen scoreless. Tim Hill, Camilo Duvall, David Bednar. They do not poop the Bednar. They all give you a scoreless inning. Robbie Ray, more like Robbie Boo. Not terrible. 2 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings. Did give up a home run to Aaron Judge, his first of the season after he had that 0 for night number 1. And then you had Giancarlo Stanton get his first home run of the campaign. That comes off of Jose Buto, who gives up a home run in 2/3 of an inning. From there, Eric Miller, Matt Gage, they both lend a scoreless inning. Ryan Baruchi, Ryan Walker, they both combined for a scoreless inning. But for the Giants, 1 hit in this game. That is certainly not going to cut it, to say the least. For the Miami Marlins, they do get the win, but they do not cover the run line for me. 2-1, they take down the Colorado Rockies. Kyle Freeland, now long for this game, 4 1/3 innings, allows 2 runs. From there, the bullpen was solid. You had Juan Mejia give you 2 scoreless innings, Jimmy Harrigan, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless, Brendan Bernardino, and out of the bullpen scoreless, and Sandy Alcantara. 1 unearned run allowed over the course of his 7 innings of work. Looked more like the guy that we all know and love. 73 pitches in 7 innings, by the way. Andrew Nardi, along with Anthony Bender, they were able to combine for a scoreless inning. Pete Fairbanks, a scoreless inning, and the only reason why you had a run up on the board is that you had a fielding error in this game from Javier Sanja, so that was a little bit costly for the Miami Marlins, but he did go 3-3 at the plate, so he was able to atone for that. The LA Angels, folks, they are now 2-0, 6-2, they take down the Houston Astros. Mike Burrows, well, he got burrowed up in this game. 5 2/3 innings, allows 5 runs, all of which were Mike Trout goes deep, second home run of the season for him, and then you had a home run number 1 of the season for Josh Lowe. He gets low on that one. Zach Neto, a little bit later on, he gets his first home run of the season. That comes off of the young gun in Ryan Wise. Not Wise, that he gave up a home run in his inning of work. You had Rodrigo Munoz, give you a pair of outside the bullpen scoreless, walk 3 along the way. Stephen Okert, 1 2/3 innings scoreless. You say Kikuchi, I say he did not last long in this game. 8 hits, 2 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings to give up a home run to Yordan Alvarez, first home run of the season, but the damage was contained and bullpen looked solid. Ryan Zephyr on 2 scoreless innings. Sam Bachman, Jordan Romano, they both on a scoreless inning, and Chase Silseth, a pair of outside the bullpen scoreless as well. You had the Toronto Blue Jays get the job done against the Athletics, 3-2 the final in this one. As for Kevin Gausman, he goes in this game for 11 punch-outs, 1 run allowed in 6 innings, did allow us a home run. Shea Langoliers, Shea bangs his first home run of the season, then he gets his second home run of the season. If you took the plus a run and a half with the Athletics, that was able to get you there, as that comes off of Jeff Hoffman, who had 4 strikeouts in an inning of work because he had a drop third strike sort of situation there. But 4 strikeouts in an inning does give up that home run, though. Louis Varland, along with Taylor Rogers, they both on the scoreless inning. And for Luis Severino, gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. Scott Barlow, Hogan Harris, they combine for 3 scoreless innings. But Justin Sterner, he gives up the winning run in the 9th inning as Andres Jimenez, an RBI single. That ends the game. It gets the Blue Jays a win. The Seattle Mariners find their way into the winner's circle, 5-1. They take down the Cleveland Guardians. For the Guardians, Chase DeLauder, 3rd home run in his 2nd career game. That comes off of George Kirby in the 1st inning. That's all that Kirby would give up. Did walk 2. That's uncharacteristic of Kirby, but still gives up just 1 run in 6 innings. Edward Bizardo, Matt Brash, Andres Munoz, all end a scoreless inning. And then for Cleveland, you had Gavin Williams give up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings. Walked 6. Not great to say the least. Colin Olderman does not live up to his name. He gives up a home run in his inning. inning of work, actually gives up 2 runs in total, as you had Luke Raley not go off the Raley's second home run of the season. Then against Gavin Williams, you had home run number 1 of the season for the second baseman Cole Young for the Guardians as well. You had 2 scoreless innings in this one from their young gun and Peyton Palante. That was his first career appearance, so looked relatively rock solid there, and I was able to help you out if you had the under in that one. For the Tigers, they win the debut of Framber Valdez, 5-2 the final is for the San Diego Padres. They did an okay job of getting to Valdez, who gives up 2 runs, 1 of which were earned in 6 innings. He gave up 7 hits, but was able to contain the damage. As for the San Diego Padres, you had Michael King be the king of giving up just 1 earned run in 5 innings, but did walk 4 from there. Adrian Morejon, 2 scoreless innings, but Jeremiah Estrada gives it up. 4 runs allowed in 2/3 of an inning. Wandy Peralta out of the bullpen, scoreless. David Morgan, a scoreless inning, but for the Tigers, bullpen is able to hold up here. Kyle Finnegan, Kenley Jansen, the newly acquired Kenley Jansen, and Emmanuel De Jesus. They're all able to end a scoreless inning. So the Tigers, they are now 2-0 to start the season. And for the Braves, a really good start out of Chris Sale to start the season. 6-0. They're able to take down the Kansas City Royals. For Sale, 6 scoreless innings out of him. From there, you had a trio of guys, Robert Suarez, Tyler Kinley, and Dylan Lee, all end a scoreless inning. Meanwhile, for Cole Ragans, not the start he was looking for. 4 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings, including a trio of bombs. Ozzy, Albies, first home run of the season. Michael Harris, the second, get his first home run of the season. And Brooks Baldwin, the reigning Rookie of the Year, he gets his first of the season. Bailey Falter lives up to his name, gives up 2 runs over the course of 3 innings. You did have a scoreless inning from one Mr. Alex Lang, but at that point, much too little, much too late. So the Atlanta Braves, they find their way into the winner's circle. And for the LA Dodgers, unable to cover the run line, but they do find a way against the Arizona Diamondbacks. 5-4 the final is for Arizona. Ryan Nelson, 4 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings, gives up a pair of bombs. Mookie Betts, his first home run of the season, and you had a home run number 1 for Alex Freeland at the bottom of the lineup. From there, the bullpen was not too bad. Kevin Ginkel does give up a run in an inning that turns out to be the difference, as Kyle Tucker, the newly acquired Kyle Tucker, an RBI single to be able to break the tie. Jonathan Loaizaga, 4 outside the bullpen, scoreless. Ryan Thompson, scoreless inning, and Emmett Sheehan, not long for this game, gives up 4 runs in 3 1/3 innings, including a home run. Going deep off of him, Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, first home run of the campaign. From there, though, Jack Dreyer, 5 outside the bullpen, scoreless. Ben Casparis, Tanner Scott combined for 3 outs, scoreless out of the bullpen. And then you had Eduardo Enriquez along with Alex Vesia and Edwin Diaz, a newly acquired Edwin Diaz, give you scoreless 7th, 8th, and 9th innings for the Dodgers to be able to get the job done. And if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in Major League Baseball, obviously a very, very small sample size thus far, but the favorites, they have been raking 13-6 on the money line thus far this season. All but 2 of those have been covers on the run line as well. And then if you're looking at the totals, 10 unders, 7 overs, and a push thus far. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we do chat it up with our good friend Johnny Venezia, does such great work over at Rotowire right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beast and Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man. We've got Johnny Venezia aboard. He does such great work over at he does such great work over at Rotowire. On top of that, I know that he's doing a great job with the Breaking Bet podcast. For those that are fans of college baseball, he is your guy. Does a tremendous job week in and week out, getting on that grind. He does a tremendous job on the MLB front as well, being able to seek out some really good features. He's hit on a few really good ones over the last few seasons. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter /X at an underscore. His first name, Johnny, with an H, and then VTV. And Johnny, it's always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Hey, Greg, what's going on, man? Been a minute. We got our sport back, baby. So we're getting into some real good stuff here today.
Absolutely. I know that you're a St. John's fan, so got to watch some Sweet 16 action.
Come on, man. What do you think? I bet St. John's outright. Let's go. Just shock the world and beat Duke. And if I'm wrong and they lose, you know what? So be it. What are they, 7-point underdogs?
Yep, and I did not take the money line, but I did take the 7. So we are mutually aligned there. So hopefully the Johnnies are able to get the job done there, and hopefully we can get the job done on the baseball front, as I think that it's going to be a really interesting season. I know you're a big, shall we say, advocate of taking a look at things like the Rookie of the Year market, the Cy Young market, and just where were you able to find some edges here in the offseason betting some of these futures?
Yeah, let's start with the Rookie of the Years, because for my time in college baseball, it takes a little bit. There's like an after effect that just really builds up the pipeline to be able to bet these markets. And it really started a few years ago when the college guys that I saw in 2022 really start funneling in, even 2023 for that matter. But for Rookie of the Year, man, it's difficult. It's unlike any other sport because baseball, there's a waiting period. Typically, if you're a first rounder in the NBA, you're at least playing a meaningful amount of games in some capacity. NFL, same thing. But the MLB, despite how good you are, there's club control clauses, so it requires a lot more finesse because there could be a guy that could win, but if he doesn't get a call up early enough and doesn't make enough of an impact, and now with all these advanced metrics that are ruling the voting realm, it really creates a challenge of trying to find a group of players that has a legitimate shot to put together a statistical profile that could win, as well as drive home enough of a narrative. Because, Greg, being in the betting industry for so long, there is a narrative-based opinions when it comes to voters. With that being said, let's start with the NL. The obvious choice is J.J. Weatherholt. Now, I say a lot of this in regards to wait and see for the reason of things can change. Nick Kurtz didn't get the call up until mid-April last year. He didn't really start becoming the favorite until right around July 4th. That was Cam Smith. Things can change in a flash. Guys get called up. They can do a lot more in a little less time, and we saw that with Nick Kurtz. So for a guy like J.J. Weatherholt, who's on the opening day roster, obviously that provides a huge advantage. I was huge on Weatherholt at West Virginia. I watched him for several years, so I knew how good he was, and I couldn't wait to bet this when the time came. And I honestly thought he should have been the number one pick over Travis Bazzana with Cleveland, and I was surprised he fell to St. Louis thinking he was an absolute steal. So J.J. Weatherholt is a guy that can easily be a 2020 guy this year, play really good defense. He played 3 positions, second, third, short at West Virginia in some capacity, and he is a guy that has above-average hit tool. High-profile guy being a top 10 pick a couple years ago. He has the narrative. The only issue is 5-1 is a little bit short. But in terms of actual pick, I like Weatherholt. I think this would be the guy, if there were no betting odds happening, that I would be picking. So if we're going a little bit more down the board here, a guy that I want you to keep your eye on is going to be Charlie Condon of the Rockies. He didn't make the opening day roster, so his number's somewhere in the 60-1 range, but this is one of those wait and sees. There is no reason Charlie Condon can't do exactly what Nick Kurtz did last year. For all intents and purposes, they are basically the same player. They're both 6'5", power hitters with above average to off field and can absolutely dominate and take over when they get on a run. And Charlie Condon playing a course field is going to feed families, quite frankly. So this is the guy that I'd be holding on and kind of reading the tea leaves of how he's doing in the minors for that eventual call-up, which I think is going to come before May. In, say, 130 games, this kid can hit 30 home runs. No doubt about it. 60-1, something to wait on. Now, in terms of the NL, there's a lot of talented players, but, the Nolan McLeans and the Connor Griffins, it's all well and good, but these numbers in this deep of a pool so early in the season, I'm not really rushing to bet. But I think with somebody like a J.J. Weatherholt, if you want a piece of somebody that can win, I think, honestly, you should wait, but this would be the guy to take. I think Carson Bench is interesting, certainly had a great debut, but I'd probably be holding back here, waiting for an eventual dip.
Yep, and I do think that is so important to be doing because timing is everything when it comes to these futures. Just because they're posted up right now doesn't mean that you have to bet it right now, and you're going to be able to find some great value a little bit later on in the season as well. As we do have our good friend Johnny Venezia, who does such great work over at Rotowire along with the Breaking Bet podcast, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And certainly, I do think that Rookie of the Year is going to be interesting. I know that Cy Young is going to be as well because a lot of people are overreacting to Paul Skeens and the rough first start that he had, which, it wasn't the world's greatest first start, but I pinned that on Oneil Cruz, who was playing like a little leaguer out there in the outfield. He's still the odds-on favorite to win the Cy Young, and I know you and I are both stands of Paul Skeens, but I know that there's a few other guys that you like out there in the National League as well. How do you take a look at that race? Because I do think that there's a guy, Chris Sale, at 12-1, who was injury-riddled last year that I think is interesting and might provide a little bit of value.
Yeah, I mean, the NL is really tough because you have Paul Skeens, who's not even in his prime yet, and he's doing what he's doing, which is incredible. Maybe there's a little bit of value now. He's past 4-1 because of a rough start the other day. Could definitely buy in on him. I like Christopher Sanchez a lot, but is he going to be able to have enough strikeouts and a low enough ERA to compete with these guys? Possibly, but the price is too short now. Yamamoto, does he have enough strikeouts? Is the ERA going to be low enough? Because these are the key components when going against Paul Skeens, who, even though some of the books don't reflect it, he's the favorite. he's the guy to beat. So Chris Sale's interesting, but really got to see what's good with him in terms of the health status. I feel like the odds are a little bit too short in that season where he won a couple years ago was maybe a little bit of an outlier in terms of what he was the previous 5 years because of the injuries and time missed. And it's, for me, at the number right now, it's hard to overlook that. But really, I'm looking down the board, man, because I think there's going to be better opportunities to bet this throughout the year. But Chase Burns, man, I gave him out at 60 to 1 on my Rotowire article for a simple reason. When Chase Burns was coming out of Wake Forest, I said I believed Chase Burns has the higher MLB ceiling than Paul Skeens. Sounded ridiculous then, still does now. But the truth is, when you look at a ceiling, this kid is up to 102 and has, in my opinion, the second best slider in all of baseball behind Dylan Cease. Absolutely demonic 12-6. He's developing a changeup and a curveball into being a more effective pitch to round out his arsenal. This kid can take an absolute lineup and shred them. And the thing is, Chase Burns got burned last year because Terry Francona put him on an innings limit. And assuming that doesn't happen, I firmly believe with Hunter Green going down, he's going to be the ace of the staff before June. I think this kid has the ability to rack up 230 strikeouts if he is able to get himself 185, 190 innings with a low enough ERA to at least compete. So the number being what it's at is a bit long in my opinion. And this is why I preface it by saying waiting and seeing might be the better option. And because I like Burns and what he can be if everything works out, I think I got to say Nolan McLean might be in that same breath because when they get going, they're really hard to beat. And if they get the innings limit, they can very well put up the numbers.
And I'm so glad that you bring up Chase Burns as well, because when I take a look at that NL Central, it's just a murky division with the Chicago Cubs. They obviously do lose a few pieces in the offseason, but when you pick up Alex Bregman, that's going to be able to be a little bit of a deodorant to that. But with the Milwaukee Brewers, who's my favorite team, man, they didn't make a lot of acquisitions here in the offseason as well. And how live do you think that the Reds are to perhaps be able to make a postseason? Because on top of Chase Burns, you still have guys like Nick Lodolo and company in that rotation that I think are rock solid. And I do think that some of the young hitters are going to be able to find it a little bit more this season.
You know what, man? I've been waiting on the Reds to really have that breakout year for, I think this is like the 4th year now. I'll probably write something up about them. I'm still finishing my team futures on Rotowire. The article will should be out by the end of this weekend. The truth is that the Reds are going to have the pitching, even with Green not coming back until projected somewhere in late July. If he comes back, and he comes back even somewhat close to himself. But the truth is that the offense has just been such a problem in recent years. I know Sal Stewart's up, and he's the next big thing, and you got Ellie, which is where has the consistency been for this lineup when they need to score runs? It's just not been there. And the fact is, while the NL Central is murky, and Milwaukee's not a sexy team, they find a way to do it. They find a way to get it done. Chicago Cubs find a way to get it done. I mean, obviously without Kyle Tucker, we'll see. But the Reds have not proven that they can get it done. And I think realistically, it's a tough ask for me to go back to the well with the Reds again right now. This is a team that I'm always going to keep my eye on with the way they can pitch. So maybe somewhere further down the line this season, I'll buy in if I see that they're really able to make those adjustments and improve on the offensive side, because I definitely think their pitching is going to be really good again.
Yep, it is going to be really interesting to take a look at that entire division. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, I think it might be a little bit rough for them this season, but we shall see on that front. And then with regards to the American League, I feel like it's a little bit more open out there because let's call it what it is. We've got the LA Dodgers in the National League. If they're not the favorite to win the National League, I don't know who is. But that said, when it comes to the American League, is there perhaps a team or two that you're feeling bullish on? And I know that you've been taking a look at a lot of these young guns. I know that you've highlighted a lot of athletics, but that said, how do you take a look at an American League where I do think that it's very up for grabs? I do think that the team or two that is able to figure it out with their farm system, bring these guys up at the right time, might be the team that really makes the most noise.
It's really funny because you just mentioned the Athletics. I think that's an interesting sleeper. Their lineup is going to be top 10 in baseball.
Yeah.
And we haven't even gotten to the fact that Tommy White is probably going to make an appearance this year. Tommy White was an absolute superstar at LSU, and he doesn't even have to be a superstar. He just has to be decent, and I think he can be. There's so much talent there with what they're offering at the plate. Now, obviously, the big thing is, can they pitch? And I understand that it's a huge issue. But the fact is, they have some guys in the farm system, like a Jamie Arnold, one of my favorite players in last year's draft, that I think can really come out and make an impact. And, look, man, if Severino's solid, if you get some good stuff from Jeffrey Springs and a couple of these other guys that you're not really expecting, they could honestly make a run. But in terms of being realistic, I'm going to go with the same two teams I went with last year. Boston Red Sox, who, in my opinion, I think it's probably theirs to lose, and also the Texas Rangers. I think if the Rangers pitching can really step up back to what it was a couple years ago when they won, their lineup's going to be fine. My boy Wyatt Langford, I think, is going to be pushing for an AL MVP seat at the table. I'm not saying he's definitely going to win or is going to win, but I think he's going to finally have that breakout. I've been talking about Wyatt Langford for 5 years now. I think that's coming. He's going to lead the charge. There's a lot of talent in that lineup still. So I would say in terms of teams that I'm really looking to bet right now, it's going to be the Red Sox and the Rangers, like last year.
Yep, I do agree with you. I still feel like Nathan Eovaldi, had he stayed healthy last year, he would have pushed for the Cy Young. He was pitching that well. Yeah. Obviously, not the greatest for a start, but only one start. I think that he's going to be able to find it a little bit there. So I'm in agreement with you on the Texas Rangers. And I talk about teams that you're a little bit bullish on. Is there a team or two that you might be a little bit bearish on? And you might not be looking to bet whether that be the futures or from a game-to-game perspective right now.
Something tells me that Seattle's going to have a little bit of a regression. I like Seattle. Seattle was a team that I was really banking on in 2021 and 2022, and they let me down. And look, man, I know they can pitch, but let's call it what it is. Luis Castillo's getting up there in age. He's not the ace that he once was. Logan Gilbert is very solid, as is Brian Wu, and they have pitching. They turn out pitchers. That's what they do. But I feel like it's hard to just rely on a few guys like they did with Cal Raleigh and Julio and Randy Rosarina. And I know, and I'm not a big fan of what they did getting Brendan Donovan, trading Durangelo Sanger, the switch pitcher, who's a day one incubator guy of mine. Great get for the Cardinals, by the way. But I just don't know if their offense is going to be consistent enough. And I know Donovan's supposed to provide that consistency. I feel like a Seattle Mariners team that had a really successful year last year, I just don't know if their offense is going to be able to consistently do it unless Cal Raleigh goes and hits another 60 home runs and Julio, pushes that 30-30 threshold again.
Yep, and we were talking about the Reds and Eugenio Suarez, who was the big pickup for the Seattle Mariners late last season, now with the Cincinnati Reds. So that's a really interesting dynamic of things, and certainly it is going to be a fun season. I know that you, Johnny, are getting set for it all. You're doing a great job on the MLB front, but I cannot go without saying that you do such a great job on the baseball front. I know that the Breaking Bet podcast breaks down the card week in and week out. You do a great job in terms of taking a look at pitching rotations, which in college baseball is very, very difficult to do, and you do so much more. So let the people at home know it's all tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, of course, man. Follow me on Twitter at _JohnnyVTV, giving out all the info on my Breaking Bet podcast as you so generously plugged in, talking a lot there. And of course, my articles on Rotowire give a lot of the written word, some stuff that maybe I miss in the podcast or don't really elaborate on as much. Definitely find that in my articles as well.
Absolutely. Johnny, you're doing such a great job taking a look at all forms of baseball, and every single time he joins me, he lends such great insight. So big thanks to Johnny for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this baseball Saturday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. It is always a pleasure to be joined by Johnny Venezia. He does such great work over at the Breaking Bet podcast, Rotowire, and so much more. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights and did so once again today. So big thanks to Johnny for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this baseball Saturday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at unit_D1. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. In baseball, that's actually quite good because that's where you go with the National League games first in time order, the American League games in time order, and then the Interleague games in time order. So actually nice, clean, and relatively easy. Let's get things started. This is 901-902. The Washington Nationals on the road against the Chicago Cubs. Cade Orton, he hopes a hero who for the Cubs, and Miles Michaelis is on the bump for Washington. anywhere between plus 179 to plus 190. Meanwhile, for the Cubs, minus 210 to minus 230. That's what you're finding there. If you're looking to lay the run line, by the way, that's between minus 105 to minus 110. Total on this game, it is 9.5. Unders between minus 115 to minus 120. Overs between even and minus 105. And looks like the wind is going to be blowing out, and it's going to be blowing out very heavily out there at Wrigley. So I'm in on the over. I did set my total at a 9.6. I'd set it a little bit higher, but still very cold conditions out there at Wrigley. But man, I do think that Cade Horton is going to see a little bit of regression from last season. Like, he was so good, but not necessarily, shall we say, the highest strikeout guy. For Cade Horton, he had a post-All-Star break ERA. That was a sub-3. In my opinion, he should have won Rookie of the Year overall for the season last year. 2.67 ERA, 0.8 home runs, 2.5 walks allowed per 9 innings. So he really ended the season oh so strong. And for Miles Mikolas, this is a guy that has become a human pinata. For Miles Mikolas last season when he was with the St. Louis Cardinals, he absolutely gave it up. 4.84 ERA. His home run rate was way up. 1.7 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Doesn't give out a lot of walks. 2.1 walks allowed per 9 innings. But also only getting about 5.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Big giant issue there. And backed up by a bullpen that last year was one of the worst in all of baseball. I actually think they're going to be a little bit better with that bullpen this season. PJ Poulin is a little bit of an upside guy. Brad Lord as a multi-inning guy is actually very good. He's not great as a starter, but they pick up Garth Farland. Now, Clayton Beeter, Cino Perez at the back end. That's not necessarily great. And for the Nationals, they just haven't had the bats be able to take off for them. Like, they were really banking on Dylan Cruz for the longest of time. That never worked out for them. Now they're looking to Keibert Ruiz to finally live up to his calling, as he was a part of the, I believe it was Max Scherzer deal many, many years ago. James Wood, though, he's able to give you good wood, 30-plus home runs, hit above a 250 last season, and remember C.J. Abrams last season, actually 2 seasons ago, he was out there in Chicago and he was busted for gambling at 5 a.m. When he doesn't do that, he does a great job in terms of moving the line, has functional power for the team, but will the guys like Dallin Lyle, Brady House be able to put it all together? And for the Chicago Cubs, you do lose Kyle Tucker in the offseason, but you replace him with Alex Bregman, who was a little bit banged up last season. The power wasn't amazing with the Red Sox, but you know that he's going to give you north of 350 on base, give you some good home runs. Michael Busch was able to supply 25-plus home runs last season. Nico Horner, not going to give you power, but he's just a good guy in terms of move the line, getting on base, hit darn near 300 last season, and what you're going to be able to get out of Pico Armstrong becomes a big question, because now you've got Michael Conforto starting right now. He's a little bit of a platoon outfielder. He gets pushed into action because, hey, Suzuki's right now dealing with a little bit of injury. And for the Cubs, they had a really good bullpen last season. Caleb Theobar had a career year. Are these guys going to be able to duplicate that? Daniel Palencia, a sub-350 ERA last season. They pick up Hobie Milner, who I liked when he was with the Milwaukee Brewers, was always able to give you some relatively good innings last year with the Texas Rangers that ballooned upward to a 3.84 ERA, but still a guy that's able to go out there, do the job, even though he doesn't give you a whole bunch of strikeouts. Do think that for the Cubs, they do find a way to be able to get the job done here, as I did set them on the run line at a minus 113. I just can't bring myself to trusting in Miles Mikolas, so going to be in on that total under, and up to minus 112 is what I'm laying on that Cubs run line. 903, 904, you've got the Rockies on the road against the Miami Marlins, as it is one Iri Perez on the bump for the Fish, and Michael Lorenzen goes for the Colorado Rockies. Rockies who find themselves as a sizable underdog here between plus 155 to a plus 160. Minus 180 to minus 190 is that number on the Miami Marlins. And if you're looking to lay a run half with Miami, that's right around about seeing as high as plus 135, as low as a plus 115. Total 7.5. Overs minus 115, unders minus 105. I'm taking the Marlins on the run line. I set that at a plus 116. Don't want to lay the money line because I just think that the Colorado Rockies, once again, are going to be absolutely terrible once again. Now, I do like for the Colorado Rockies, Hunter Goodman at the catcher spot, 25 plus home runs. I actually hit on the road, but for the Colorado Rockies, 2.7 runs per game away from home last season, dead last in terms of batting average and on-base percentage away from home. These guys just do not hit when they're away from Coors Field. It's just one of those things where they come down from elevation. This actually helps them out, the fact that you don't have the, shall we say, up and down from elevation right now, but that is going to be very costly for the team moving forward. And then they are relying upon some young guys that I just don't know if I'm feeling it with them. You've got TJ Rumfield, who I think has a little bit of upside. You did have a few home runs for his back half of last season from Kyle Karros. That's of relation to Eric Karros, but still, these are a lot of guys that are very unproven, so you have a lot of question mark there. And then Then on the flip side for the Miami Marlins, you've got Jacob Marcy, who I really like. I think that he's got a little bit of upside to him. Augustin Ramirez was able to give you some power, not necessarily like a super masher or anything like that, but a guy that was able to give you 20-plus home runs last season for the Miami Marlins as well. I do think that there's quite a bit of upside with the top of the lineup, having Austin Slater now in the fold. He's a guy that's able to give you some singles. They have been dealing with a few injuries with, I know Xavier Edwards has always been a guy that's been able to do a good job getting on base. They've got him a little bit lower on the lineup now, but he was able to hit for north of a 275 last year. And Owen Cassey, he was a, shall we say, up-and-coming guy for the Chicago Cubs last season. I think that he's got quite a bit of upside as well. I do think that for the Miami Marlins, offense is still going to be relatively rough this season. And Michael Lorenzen is actually a respectable pitcher for the Colorado Rockies. Now we'll see if Colorado, because they have to pitch at elevation, that just essentially destroys his confidence. We see it with so many different guys, but Lorenzen last season was presentable. He was posting up a 4.64 ERA, 4.59 fielding dependent. The big thing for him is that he was able to get his strikeouts up last season, up to about 8.1 strikeouts to 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Just gave up the deep ball, 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, but this Miami Marlins team really doesn't hit a lot of bombs. And then Erie Perez, I think that he's got a lot of upside. He was amazing out there in Miami last season. A guy that last season he was posting up overall 4.25 ERA, but that fielding independent was more around about a 3.67, 10 strikeouts to 3 walks per 9 innings, and just was a much better pitcher when he was at home rather than away from home. And he's in year number 2 coming off of major surgery as well. That's a bit of upside at home last year. Gave up 1 home run in 43 innings, 2.93 ERA. So think that you're going to get a little bit of a lower scoring game. I did semi-total here at a 7.2 with the Marlins run line. I'm also willing to take a shot on the 7.5 to the under as well. 905, 906, you've got the Mets. They're going to be playing host to the Pittsburgh Pirates, as you've got one Mr. Mitch Keller on the bump for the Buccos, and David Peterson, great name, he goes for the Mets. Total on this game between 7.5 to 8. On the 8, the under is minus 115, the over is minus 105, and on the 7.5, over is minus 115, under is minus 105 with the Mets. They're anywhere between minus 153 to minus 165 favorites, and between plus 135 to plus 145. That number on Pittsburgh. If you're looking to lay a run half with the Mets, by the way, plus 135, and that's what I'm looking to do. I did set my run line price at a plus 129 for David Peterson. Did post up in the ERA that was a little bit north of 4 last season, but he was one of the more unlucky pitchers in all of baseball, as he was supplying the team with only about a half home run allowed per 9 innings, was able to eat some relatively good innings, and had a 4.22 ERA, but a 3.48 fielding independent, and now gets to go up against a Pittsburgh Pirates lineup that it should be better this year. You bring in Marcell Ozuna, a guy that was able to hit 30-plus homers last few seasons, was really the lone guy for the Atlanta Braves over the last 2 seasons that didn't completely flame out, but for the Pirates, 3.6 runs per game last season, dead sinking last in all baseball. Brian Reynolds, I think that he returns to form a little bit more last season. He was just absolutely awful for this team, as he had about a 245 with 16 home runs. They no longer have Andrew McCutchen, though, and Oneil Cruz. While he had 20 home runs last season, he had at the Mendoza line of 200. Just all sorts of issues there. Nick Gonzalez never really has been able to find it, less than a 300 on base with just 5 home runs last season. They traded away Cabrines, so got a lot of question mark with this Pirates lineup. And then for the New York Mets, obviously you've got Juan Soto. A lot of people said that he had a down year last year. Give you darn near 400 on base with 43 home runs. Just absolutely insane. After a down year for Francisco Alvarez, and he did have a down year, he was able to hit a home run day number 1. Bryce Beatty was able to have 3 RBI. Francisco Lindor always has been a little bit hot and cold, and I know that he started out a few seasons a little bit more cold, but last season about a 350 on base, 31 home runs, so he still finds a way to be able to get the job done. And for the Mets, they are going to be in a little bit of transition with the bullpen, because no longer do they have the main closer in Edwin Diaz, but you bring in Luke Weaver, who is one of the better, shall we say, setup men / closers in all baseball last season. Devin Williams was rough with the New York Yankees last season, but the team that really ended him was the Mets. Maybe this is going to bring everything full circle. 2 years ago, prior to giving up that home run to Pete Alonso, he was one of the best closers in all of baseball. Oscar Brzobin is able to give you some good innings as well. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, not really feeling this bullpen. You've got Justin Lawrence and Dennis Santana, who were solid last season. Dennis Santana, sub 275 ERA. Gregory Soto is a guy that I've learned to very much not trust, to say the least. Last season, he was supplying about a 4.42 ERA, was giving up a lot of hard contact. His walks rate was up last season, so that's a little bit of an issue. Isaac Manson is able to give you some relatively good innings, but Yohan Ramirez, he's another guy that I really don't trust. And for Mitch Keller, he just really doesn't wow you in any way. I thought that his swing and miss stuff was going to be going up and up as the seasons went along, but it's actually gone down. He posted up fewer than 8 strikeouts per 9 innings last season. Overall, 4.19 ERA, 4.02 fielding dependent. Only gave up about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, but 7.7 strikeouts per 9 last season was a career low for him, and do think that the Mets get taking them here. Did semi-total 7.7 here at the 8. I like the under and the run line of the bets, 907, 908. The Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be on the road facing off against the LA Dodgers. Tyler Glasnow is on the bump for the Dodgers. Eduardo Rodriguez goes for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks, very sizable underdogs here, anywhere between plus 190 to plus 210. Minus 240 to minus 250. That number on the LA Dodgers. So this game is 8.5. Seeing a 9 out there as well. That under is minus 120. The over is even. On the 8.5, over is between minus 115 to minus 120. And the under, that is anywhere between even and minus 105. And if you're looking at the run line of the Dodgers, that's pretty much minus 110 across the board. And I am going to be willing to lay that run line. I was willing to go up to a minus 111. So right at that buy point. But that's it for Tyler Glasnow. I do think that the command is going to be better than it was 8 seasons ago. Last year, 4.3 walks per 9 innings. 2 seasons ago, though, that was more like 2.4 walks per 9. He's dealt with a few injuries over the last few seasons, but still a good swing and miss guy. 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Recognize that you do have an Arizona Diamondbacks team that was a top 10 team in terms of run creation last year, but much of that was thanks to Eugenio Suarez and what he was able to do. They trade him away at the trade deadline. Now you still have Corbin Carroll is able to give you 30 plus home runs. He's going to be rock solid, and I always love Ketel Marte of the Marte Party. He always gives you a north of 275 average, gives you 25 plus home runs. You know what you're going to be able to get out of him. Nolan Arenado, does he have anything left in the tank? I think that that's a very valuable question because last year just had a massive fall off with the St. Louis Cardinals at an on-base percentage. That's just a 289, so that's a little bit of an issue, but you know what he's going to be able to provide with regards to glove and for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Also, big question, what are you going to be able to get out of this bullpen? The bullpen has been so awful over the last few seasons. A.J. Puck is on the 60-day injured list, and he's one of the more underrated relievers in all of baseball. They're kicking the tires on Jonathan Loáisiga after he had a few rough seasons with the New York Yankees. Taylor Clark is a guy that I think has a little bit of upside. Ryan Thompson, when things are rocking and rolling, he's okay, but Paul Sewald, after they traded for him many years ago from the Seattle Mariners, that just has not worked out for this team. Sewald last season, he was with the Diamondbacks 2 seasons ago. Last year, posted up about a 4.58 ERA between 2 squads. It's not necessarily amazing, to say the least. And then you've got for the LA Dodgers what I like to call the Death Star lineup. Shohei Ohtani's going to give you 40 plus home runs. He's going to do a great job finding a way to move the line, get on base. But Max Muncy, he is such a big key for this team. When he was out of the lineup last season, they averaged more than a full run less per game than when he was in it. He's not necessarily the biggest basher in the world, but it just feels like he helps out guys to be able to get better at bats. Will Smith gets jiggy with it. He'll give you 25 plus home runs, hit darn near 300. They pick up Kyle Tucker in the offseason. Now, they do have a little bit of issue at the second base spot. Right now, Alex Freeland is making starts for them, but I mean, really, other than that, that's the lone wart that they've got, and I do think that for the LA Dodgers, this bullpen is going to be much better this season. Tanner Scott had a down year last year. 2 years ago, he's posting up a sub-3 ERA. They pick up Edwin Diaz, Jack Dreyer. He was supplying the team with a sub-325 ERA. Blake Tryon was awful last year, but I think that he's going to be able to find it as well, so do think that you get Dodgers domination here, especially with Eduardo Rodriguez, posting up about a 5.03 ERA last season. Gave up a home run and a half per 9 innings. The fielding independent, more around about 455, shows that he might be doing for a little bit of positivity, and on the road he was posting up about 9.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, so I think that that's just enough for you to get the under. Semi-total at 8.2, and with the Dodgers willing to lay the minus 110 run line. 909, 910, you've got the Athletics. They're going to be on the road against the Blue Jays. Dylan Cease is on the bump for the Jays, and Jeffrey Springs goes for the Athletics, and the Athletics do find themselves as a pretty good-sized underdog. You're going to be getting them anywhere between plus 144 to a plus 160, and between minus 172 to a minus 190. That number on Toronto with a total of 8.5. Unders between minus 110 to even money. The over is anywhere between actually minus 105 to a minus 120. So juice is a little bit all over the place. You pick your poison. I personally like the under in this spot. Semi-total at 8.2. And with the Blue Jays, with regards to a run line, I was willing to take about a plus 128 or higher. Right now I'm seeing as high as a plus 130 out there. So I would be willing to dive in on that run line for Dylan Cease. He had a rough season last year with north of 4 ERA, but once again, the fielding independent numbers are very much there. He's got some of the best, shall we say, off-speed stuff in all of baseball, and he was still getting against strikeouts last season. For Dylan Cease, while he did post up that 4.55 ERA, 3.56 fielding independent, 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, needs to work on the walks, 3.8 walks per 9 innings, and the Blue Jays bullpen up against it a little bit because you're dealing with the injury to Yimi Garcia. That's a little bit rough, but still, you are going to have some nice guys to be able to hold down the fort. Jeff Hoffman, after he had a rough season last year during the regular season, really found it in the postseason. Brandon Little, Louis Varland, I think that these guys are going to be able to step up, and they pick up Tyler Rogers in the offseason, and I expect a big year from this offense. Don't call his name Alejandro Kirk. He really came alive during the postseason, and has always been a north of 275 hitter. Flagger Jr., just 23 or so home runs in the regular season last year, but absolutely exploded in the month of October. And then you've got Andres Jimenez, who he hit just a 210 during the regular season last year, but I think that there's a little bit of upside with him as well, after he was a guy that was a little bit hot or cold with the Cleveland Cleveland Guardians a few seasons ago. Dalton Varsho is a guy that really hit for a bunch of power last year. 20 home runs and only about 250 or so at bats. Not necessarily a guy that's going to hit for a lot of average, sub 300 on base, but he's able to give you some power, and he does a great job out there in the field as well. And then on the flip side, you got a guy in Jeffrey Springs who was a much better pitcher when he was away from home rather than at home, which you found that a lot with the Athletics pitchers last season because Sacramento, obviously, one of the most, shall we say, hitter-friendly ballparks that we have ever seen, and that's going to be going away after next season, but that's it for Springs. 4.81 home ERA, 3.45 ERA on the road, and on the road, he was only giving up about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings. The walks per 9 rate was around 3, so he was able to do a pretty formidable job. Here's the issue that you got for the Athletics. So what are you going to be able to get out of this bullpen? Because Mason Miller and Lucas Ursage were the main pieces for that bullpen. They traded both away at the trade deadline a season ago, so now they're relying upon Justin Sterner, Elvis Alvarado. Hogan Harris is right now your closer. He posted up like a 4 ERA. Mark Leiter Jr., well, he was lightering up games for the New York Yankees, to say the least, so don't have a lot of faith there, but this lineup is going to be able to mash. Shea Langoliers, Shea Bangs for 30-plus home runs. Jeff McNeil's a guy that they picked up in the offseason. Nick Kurtz hit above a 300 with 25-plus home runs last season. Lawrence Butler had a little bit of a down season, but you know that he's got some power. Brent Rooker, 25-plus home runs. Tyler Soderstrom cooled down a little bit from his hot start a season ago, but it's another guy that is able to give you a whole bunch of power. I do think that for the Athletics, they're going to do a solid job with their just overall lineup, but that said, I think that Dylan Cease has a little bit of a bounce-back season. If we could get a plus 128 or higher on that run line, willing to lay it with the Blue Jays on the run line, and with regards to the total, I do like the under because I think that Cease gives a good start, so my total at an 8.2. 9-11, 9-12, it is the Twins on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. Kyle Bradish is on the bump for Baltimore. Taj Junkel, Milton Bradley is on the bump for Minnesota, and with Minnesota, you're going to be finding them as a underdog of anywhere between plus 135 to plus 140. Meanwhile, minus 153 to minus 163 is that number on Baltimore. 7.5 is the total. Overs between minus 115 to minus 125. Unders between minus 105 to a plus 105. And with this total, I set my total at 9.2. I'm going to be in on the over. Taj Bradley with the Minnesota Twins after he got dealt there in the back half of the season last year. 6.61 ERA with 1.7 home runs per 9 innings. I recognize that the conditions aren't the world's greatest out there in Baltimore right now. It's a little bit cooler, but I do think that this is going to be a nice game for offense, even though Kyle Bradish was really good last season. In his small sample size, 253 ERA across his 6 starts, he was getting over 13 strikeouts per 9 innings, but again, very small sample size, so do have to have a few question marks as to how real that was. I think that he's going to have a good year. And for the Minnesota Twins, certainly a team that traded away just a lot of pieces at the trade deadline last season, but Lucas Shaw, I think, has some upside. He was able to hit 300 last season. Josh Bell was much better in the second half of the season last year as well. Like, his first half of the season with the Washington Nationals, he was absolutely terrible, and I'm not going to say that this guy was amazing or anything like that last season, a 239 average with 22 home runs, but post All-Star break, he was hitting above a 250. He was able to hit much of his home runs in the second half of the season as well, so a little bit of upside there. You do have a few guys that are at their peak, just really, really good players in general. As I mean, for Byron Buxton, if this guy wouldn't get hurt, he'd be an MVP candidate in my opinion. Royce Lewis way down last season, but I think that he's going to be able to find it this season, so I do think that there's some upside with the Twins in this lineup, but both of these teams were also in the bottom 6 in terms of bullpen ERA last season. For the Twins, they pick up Anthony Banda from the Dodgers, which I think is nice, but Cody Funderburk north of 4 ERA last season. Eric Orze, he was a little bit up down all around with the Royals last season. Cole Sands, well, he makes you a pound, Sands, if you bet on him, man, that's not great to say the least. And then on the flip side, you have a Baltimore Orioles lineup that I expect big things from this season. You pick up Pete Alonso, who year in and year out always gives you 35-plus home runs, does a good job in terms of reaching base. Now, they do have Jackson Holliday and Jordan Westberg currently on the injured list. That obviously hurts his team, so Kobe Mayo right now seeing a lot of at-bats. Adley Rushman, what are you going to be able to get out of him moving forward? And Samuel Basallo, is he going to be able to be the real deal? Had some great moments towards back half of the season last year, but was very inconsistent. Taylor Ward, guy that's able to give you 25-plus home runs, but also a guy that probably going to hit for less than a 240. Gunnar Henderson, I think, is going to be in for a big year, but again, I have a lot of question marks with this Orioles bullpen, though. Ryan Elsley looked really good in his first appearance with the Baltimore Orioles, struck out all 3. Perhaps he returns form after he was terrible after getting traded to the New York Mets. Tyler Wells, he's going to be the long guy for the team, and you're never going to know. Like 2 or 3 years ago, he was one of the better relievers in all baseball. Do think that you got some upside there, and I'm just not a believer in Taj Bradley, so my total 9.2. I do like the over in this spot, and with the Orioles, I did set them on the money line at a minus 159. If you're looking to lay run half, right now that plus price, right around about a plus 135, plus 140. I'm going to go with that plus price, plus 138 or better. That's my buy point on that Orioles run line. 9:13, 9:14. It is the Angels. They are going to be on the road against the Astros. Christian Javier is on the bump for the Astros. Reed Detmers goes for the Angels. Angels are anywhere between plus 122 to plus 130 underdogs. Anywhere between minus 140 to minus 150 is that number on Houston. Total's game is 8.5. Over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And set a total of an 8.7. I do like the over. Reed Detmers in his starts last year was absolutely terrible. Now, he was able to find it a little bit more towards the back half of the season last year, and guy has a no-hitter to his credit, so he's been able to put it together in the past. Have still a lot of question marks with him, but still, actually a 3.96 ERA was not bad for Angel standards. 3.12 fielding dependent, 11.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. But again, what are you going to be able to get out of that LA Angels bullpen? And you got Christian Javier post up north of a 5 ERA last season. He did not look like the same guy coming off of injury. That was rough, to say the least, and that's a big reason why I'm in on the over. When it comes to this LA Angels team, Jordan Romano had north of an 8 ERA last season. Do think that there's some upside there. Drew Pomeranz, Joey Lucchesi, those are actually nice adds to this bullpen. Brent Suter, he's not amazing, but he's not awful, and that's an upgrade for the team. But Ryan Zefrian at north of a 4.70 ERA. The Angels just yearn in Europe, bottom 5 team with regards to bullpen ERA. And you want to talk about a team that's hit or miss? It is the LA Angels. As even Mike Trout last year hit less than a 240 now. Was able to hit for quite a few home runs, and Joe Adell, he tries to set fire to the rain. This is a guy that last year, the home run power was there, 37 home runs, also hit for a 293 on base as well. They deal away Taylor Ward in the offseason, so now they're relying upon Yohan Moncada to give you anything whatsoever, and for Logan O'Hoppe, have to be very happy about the fact that he's hit 19 plus home runs over the last 2 years, not so happy about the 258 on base last season, and for the Astros, it does feel like this lineup is a little bit more cooked than what it has been in the past, but you still have Jose Altuve. He's going to hit for 275, 20 plus home runs. You know what you're going to be able to expect there. It is an Astros bullpen that's dealing with some injuries right now. Bennett Sosa, Josh Hader currently on the injured list, but you've got the Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, Steven Okert, who all supplied a sub 350 ERA last season. Now they've got Rodario Munoz as a long reliever. That's not good, to say the least. And this is another team that they don't do the world's greatest job of getting on base, but they don't strike out a lot either. So you've got a guy in Yunier Diaz who's able to give you 20 plus home runs if it's for about a 250, but less than a 300 on base. Christian Walker, just a 330 on base last season. Jacob Myers, Cam Smith, these are guys that were disappointments last year in the outfield, young guys that they're going to be relying upon along Joey Looper Fido, and I do think that there's some upside with that lineup, and I do think that for Reed Detmers, he gives you a relatively solid start. I just do not trust in that Angels bullpen whatsoever, so semi-total at 8.7. I do like the over, and with the Astros, set them out of minus 166 on the money line. You are getting a run line price above plus 140, but I personally would rather stick with the money line here rather than the run line. So go on money line, and I'm going to be going with this total over as well on the Astros. 9:15, 9:16. You've got the Cleveland Guardians on the road against the Seattle Mariners. As for the Mariners, Brian Wu says woohoo to another start, and Joey Cantillo is on the bump for Cleveland. Cleveland is a sizable underdog here, plus 152 to a plus 165, and between minus 180 to minus $2 at number on Seattle. Total's game between 7 to 7.5 on the 7.5. Unders minus 125. The over is plus 105 on the 7. Over is anywhere between minus 110 to a minus 125. Unders anywhere between plus 105 to minus 110. And right now with the Guardians, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them. Set them at a plus 147. I really like the way that Joey Cantillo was able to just give you some good performances last year. The walks are an issue. 4 walks per 9 innings, but did a nice job keeping the ball in the yard. 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. 10.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. He started out the year coming out of the bullpen. They transitioned him to being a starter, and he was able to really thrive as a starter as well. So he was able to do a great job in both roles. So I think that there's a lot of upside there. As a matter of fact, in his 5 appearances in September, a $1.55 ERA. So that's very good. And for Brian Wu, he had an amazing season last year. Did give up 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, but 1.7 walks, 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, a 2.94 ERA. Have to wonder if that pectoral muscle injury that he had towards back half of the season last year is going to linger a little bit, though, as he did have a 347 fielding independent with giving up a little bit more hard contact than what you'd like. Now for the Cleveland Guardians here in Europe, this team is in the bottom half of the big leagues with regards to run creation, but we saw them night number 1 be able to play a little bit of deep ball. And I think that Rhys Hoskins is a really good ad for the team, a guy that's able to give you 25 plus home runs, not going to hit for a lot of average. Kyle Manzardo sort of cut from the same cloth as last year. Manzardo was able to supply 27 home runs, but only about a 235 with a 315 on base. I do really like, though, what you're able to get out of the man at the top, though, as for Stephen Kwan, year in and year out, he hits above a 275. Sometimes he gets a little bit too cute with the power, and Chase DeLauder had 2 home runs in his MLB debut. It looks like he's going to be really big for the team moving forward, but then you've got the likes of Brian Rocchio, who's not necessarily great. Gabriel Urias, he does not find a way to move the line. Obviously, Jose Ramirez, we know that he's one of the most consistent hitters in all baseball, and that is a big reason why I do think that the Guardians can get the job done. And for the Guardians, they were number 3 in the big leagues last year in terms of bullpen ERA. They're dealing with the injury to Hunter Gaddis, but Cade Smith, sub 350 ERA, Eric Zabrowski, Sean Armstrong, just so many good, presentable arms. Even Tim Herron is able to do a good job. And then for the Seattle Mariners, they have perhaps one of the best 1-2 punches in all baseball. Matt Brash, Andres Munoz, both a sub-3 ERA last season. Gabe Spire was rock solid. Carlos Vargas is currently on the injured list, but he was one of the lesser guys last season. Edward Bizarro is a guy that I like. And for the Seattle Mariners, obviously big dumper Cal Raleigh, 60-plus home runs last season. We know what we can expect out of him. Josh Naylor, he was a part of the Cleveland Guardians, and his power was a little bit down last season, but now he's stealing bases, which I still find to be unbelievable. Brandon Donovan does a good job finding way on base throughout his career with the Cardinals, north of 350 on base. A little bit of what this team needs because it is very much a pitcher-friendly ballpark. As a matter of fact, a lot of the metrics show that this is the most pitcher-friendly ballpark in all baseball, and that's a big reason why I did set my total at a 7.2. Between a 7 to a 7.5, I'd rather have the 7.5 under rather than the 7 over. And with regards to this one for the Guardians, plus 148 or higher, do like that money line. 917, 918, it is the Cardinals. They play OC Tampa Bay Rays. Joe Boyle says Boyle rules for the Rays, and Michael McGreevy goes for the Cardinals. Cardinals are a pretty much pick 'em here. Minus 110 to minus 112 is your number there. And between minus 104 to minus 110 for the Tampa Bay Rays. Total 7.5. Unders between minus 115 to minus 120. Overs between even to minus 105. And when it comes to the Cardinals, did set them as the slim minus 102 favorite. Whoever the underdog is, that's who I'm going to be taking in this spot. So I'm going to be waiting overnight with that, but do think that this is pretty much a toss-up game right here. And for Joe Boyle, he was able to do a great job with his strikeout stuff last year. About 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. 4.8 walks per 9 innings, and Michael McGreevy was the exact opposite. Like, both of these guys had an ERA that was hovering in that neighborhood of 4.4 to 4.5, but for completely different reasons. With McGreevy, only 1.9 walks allowed per 9 innings, but 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and it looks like the Tampa Bay Rays bullpen for the first time in a very, very long time is just going to absolutely stink. Like, I do not trust in Griffin Jax whatsoever. He got jacked up in the first game of the season. Kirk Clevenger, he's a guy that's relatively okay in the bullpen, but Edwin Uceta right now deals with an injury. Ian Seymour should be starting, not coming out of the bullpen. I completely disagree with that. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, they were 14th in the league in terms of run creation last year. Junior Caminero, 40-plus home runs. Jonathan Aranda, he's able to give you north of 375 on base. Chandler Simpson, it's for no power, but one of the best base stealers in all baseball. They pick up Cedric Mullins, who's had a few rough seasons over the last few, but this is a guy that at his peak was one of the best hitters for the Orioles for a very long time, 30-plus home runs in 2021. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, you lose Brandon Donovan in the offseason. That hurts. Nolan Arenado clearly was over there, and feels like it might be a little bit of a all-or-nothing team. They're dealing with the injury to Lars Nootbaar. Shock, surprise, surprise that he's back out of the fold, but I do like what Ivan Herrera is able to bring. He's able to give you north of a 340 on base with some functional power. Nathan Church, I think, has a little bit of upside with Gorman. He'll probably give you 20-plus home runs, but man, that guy strikes out a lot. J.J. Weatherholt, I think that he's got some upside. He had a home run in the first game of the season as well, and Jordan Walker, Victor Scott, these guys just have not panned out at the big league level, but I do like the Cardinals bullpen a little bit better. Chris Roycroft, Matt Savanson, Riley O'Brien, these guys applied a sub-4 ERA last season. Jojo Romero was solid. They didn't look good day number 1, but I think that irons out a little bit. So with the Cardinals at a minus 101 or better, I'll look at them on the money line again. Whoever becomes plus money, that's who I'm going to be taking. And semi-total at 8.7, I do like the over. 919, 920, you've got the Rangers. They are going to be on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies. Aaron Nola looks to be super for the Phils. Jacob deGrom is on the bump for the Rangers. The Rangers who find themselves as an underdog here, and we're between plus 102 to minus 106, seeing as good as plus 108 out there as well. And between minus 110 to minus 122, that number on Philadelphia is 7.5 is the total. Over and under, anywhere between minus 105 to minus 115. Do like the over. I semi-total 7.6. Is Aaron Nola going to be better than the 6.01 ERA with 1.7 home runs per 9 innings allowed last season? I think so, but I just can't trust him here. With Jacob deGrom, yes, the fielding independent was a bit higher than the ERA last season, 2.97 ERA, but closer to a 3.64 fielding independent to give up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, but still got about 9.5 strikeouts, fewer than 2 walks per 9 innings. And for Nola, man, it was just absolutely brutal last year, and I've always felt like Aaron Nola has been a little bit overrated. Now for the Phillies, the bullpen is much better than it has been in the past. Brad Keller, sub 350 ERA with the Cubs last season. Jose Alvarado was dealing with the drug suspension last year, so a little bit of an all-around season there. Yohan Duran is one of the better closers in all baseball. For the Phillies, one of the best offenses in all baseball at home. Away from home, they score more than a run fewer per game than at home, but Trey Turner down for what is able to hit for about a 300. Bryson Stott, not great power, but does a good job in terms of moving the line. Bryce Harper, he's very hot or cold, but that said, I think that he's going to be able to give you a good season once again. They pick up Adolis Garcia. He just has not been able to reach base ever since the World Series. Series that the Texas Rangers won as they pick them up from Texas. And for the Rangers, this team was in the bottom half of all baseball last year with regards to their overall run creation. Do you think that they're going to be much better this season? Wyatt Langford, he was able to do a nice job in terms of just his second half of the season last year. Last season was able to give the team about a 344 on base with 22 home runs. Do you think that you got some real upside there? Additionally, I think that Corey Seager is going to return to form after he was dealing with an injury last season. Jake Berger had a home run day number 1, and for Berger, he's always been very inconsistent in terms of reaching base. 269 on base last season, and Jock Peterson was terrible last year. I don't think that these guys are going to be amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that they're going to be better, and Josh Young had his growth stunted last season. I think that he's going to be a bit better than last season, and for the Rangers, top 6 team in terms of bullpen ERA last season. They pick up Tyler Alexander, who's not great, but he's able to be an innings eater, for lack of a better term. Robert Garcia, sub 350 ERA last season. Cole Winn was very under the radar solid about last season, about a $1.51 ERA, so I think that you got a lot of upside there as well. And for Jacob deGrom, I feel like you should be the favorite here. Set the Rangers at a minus 118, like them on the money line, and semi total 7.6 on the 7.5, like the over 921, 922. The Red Sox are on the road against the Reds, as you've got Brady Singer hoping to have the Red Sox singing the blues, and Sonny Gray goes for Boston. Boston is a favorite here of anywhere between minus 142 to minus 158, plus 120 to plus 138. The number on the Reds totals between 7.5 to 8 on the 7.5, overs minus 120. The unders even on the 8, unders between minus 115 to minus 125, overs between minus 105 to plus 105, and like the Reds here on the money line, set them at a plus 113. I just currently do not trust in Sonny Gray after he had a second half of the season last year that was absolutely abysmal. Looked relatively solid in the first half of the season, but post All-Star break posted up a 5.45 ERA. He was giving up about 1.85 home runs per 9 innings, and for Sonny Gray, you have to wonder if he's a little bit washed. Meanwhile, for Brady Singer, he did have overall last season a 4.03 ERA, but his fielding independent was right on par with that, and he was better in the second half of the season. He had a 3.62 ERA in the second half of the season, and after posting up 3.6 walks per 9 innings in the first half, got down to about 2.6 walks per 9 innings in the second half, so the command was much better in the back half of his first season with the Cincinnati Reds. And for the Reds, this was a bullpen that was relatively ho-hum last year. They were about league average with regards to their ERA, nothing great, nothing awful, but I do think that they're going to be relatively solid this season. You've got a guy in Tony Santin that I always think has some relative upside. They did get rid of Brent Suter in the offseason, but still, you've got a relatively, shall we say, deep bullpen with Pierce Johnson supplying a sub 350 ERA last season. Brock Burke was like the only guy in that Angels bullpen last year that was halfway respectable with the Angels. He actually supplied a 3.36 ERA. I don't really trust in their reliever in Emilio Pagan. He's just all over the place, but I do think that the Reds are a little bit revamped with this lineup as well. And Eugenio Suarez, 49 home runs last season. As we know, he can be very hit or miss in terms of finding a way to move the line, get on base, but you've got a guy in Navoli Marte, who I think is ready to take off. Last season, he gave the team 14 home runs. That was hitting about a 265. One of the few guys that was consistently moving the line. Ellie De La Cruz, we all know what he's able to do. One of the best base stealers in all baseball, and he had 22 home runs, was hitting for about a 335 on base. I expect a little bit more out of him this season. Sal Stewart is a guy that I think has a lot of upside as well. Saw very limited at-bats last season, but 5 home runs and 55 at-bats was really good at the minor league level. And for the Boston Red Sox, they do lose Alex Bregman in the offseason, though this is still a really rock-solid lineup. You pick up Wilson Contreras essentially to replace him. They are dealing with the injury to Tristan Casas, so that hurts them a little bit, but like Carlos Narvaez at the catcher spot, and this is just a team that up and down the boulevard, a lot of guys that are going to give you probably like 20 home runs, hit about a 275. Roman Anthony, not necessarily a power hitter at this point in his career, but did a really good job reaching base. You can tell that when he went down with injury last season, things really went off the rails for the team, so having him back is back. Wilder Abreu, he was able to while out last season. He gave the team 22 home runs, was giving you about a 250 average, like what he brings to the table. And for the Red Sox, this is one of the best bullpens that you're going to find in all baseball. Aroldis Chapman, a sub 150 ERA last season. You've got a guy in Garrett Whitlock, who I remember when they tried him out as a starter. That did not work, but he's been one of the better relievers in all baseball. Greg Weiser, Danny Kalum, these are guys that can give you a sub 350 ERA. But again, I just don't trust in Sonny Gray in this spot. You've got a Cincinnati Reds ballpark that is one of the best for hitters in all baseball. I recognize that it's not necessarily the warmest out there in the Midwest right now, but I do think that you get some runs because I do think that Sonny Gray just gives it up here. Semi-line at a 9 with regards to total, so like the overhand at a plus 114 or better, willing to take a shot on the Reds on the money line. 923, 924 on the card. It is the White Sox. They're going to be on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers as Chad Patrick is on the bump for the Crew, and Sean Burke goes for the White Sox. White Sox are a sizable underdog here, anywhere between plus 158 to a plus 170, anywhere between minus 188 to minus 210. That number on the Southsiders, Tom's game is 8. The over and the under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and when it comes to the Chicago White Sox. Did set them as a pretty good size underdog here. If you're looking to lay a run half right now with the Milwaukee Brewers, you're going to be getting right around about a plus 110, plus 115. And with this Milwaukee Brewers team, I did set them on the run line at a plus 114. So plus 115, that is my bare bones minimum buy point here, which I had Patrick. He had a nice start to the season last year, but really struggled at the minor league level. When he came back up, he wasn't necessarily quite that same guy. But I do think that in season number 2, he's going to be able to find it a little bit more here with the Brewers. Last season, you look overall, he was posting up a 3.53 ERA, 1 home run and 3 walks per 9 innings, and the swing and miss stuff is good. 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he faces off against a White Sox lineup that obviously was in the bottom half of the big leagues last season. They did score just 2 runs in that opening day game, but I think that there's some upside here with the White Sox. Second half of the season was one of the best teams in terms of not striking out in all baseball. They are dealing with the injury to Kyle Teal, but Edgar Quijano was able to do a nice job hitting for north of a 270 last season. Montaka Murakami, hopefully I got that correct. He in his first game in the States was able to hit a home run. That's big. Andrew Benintendi is a guy with some upside. I remember when he was just so amazing for the Red Sox a few seasons ago, and for the White Sox last season, he was able to hit 20 home runs, about a 310 on base. You're going to need a little bit more with regards to the on base, but upside there. Lennon Sosa, I think that he's going to be able to give you a bit of something as well. This White Sox bullpen, though, is just not great. You got John Newcomb, who for his career north of a 4 ERA. Jordan Leisurely gives you about a 4 ERA. Now, I do like Sir Anthony Dominguez, relatively solid pickup. It's better than what they had, but Grant Taylor last year was playing about a 4.91 ERA. And for Sean Burke, he's got really good swing and miss stuff. Can he put it all together, though? Posted up a 4.29 ERA last season, and he was giving you about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but the walks per 9 rate was hovering right around about 4 as well. So a lot of question mark there. Additionally, with the Chicago White Sox, they have to go up against a Brewers team that they're not necessarily going to hit you with the deep ball time and time again, and losing Caleb Durbin, I think, is going to be rough for the Brewers moving forward, but Christian Yelich, he does a nice job giving you over a 335 on base. He was able to supply 25 plus home runs last season. Andrew Vaughn was just absolutely terrible with the White Sox last season. Goes on over to the Brewers. With the Brewers in 64 games, he had a 375 on base. He was able to find it as well. For the Brewers, you just have a lot of guys that steal bases, like Sal Frelick, who's able to give you 20 plus stolen bags. They pick up David Hamilton. I think that he's an upside guy. Bryce Harang is a guy that's able to hit 270 with functional power. He'll steal some bags as well. William Contreras is a guy that last season was able to do a really nice job for the team as well. 355 on base with 17 home runs. And for the Brewers, one of the better bullpens that you're going to find in all baseball. Abner Uribe is sub 2 ERA. Trevor McGill is sub 350 ERA. Jared Koenig, Aaron Ashby, just so much depth with this bullpen. So with the Brewers, I am going to be willing to lay the run line with them, as I'm willing to go plus 115 or better on that run line. And with regards to total, like the overs, I might total at an 8.8, 925, 926. The Royals are going to be on the road facing off against the Braves, as Reynaldo Lopez is on the bump for the Braves, and Michael Wacha goes for the Royals. And if he has a bad start, it becomes the dying backman voice of Michael Wacha, 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 Wacha. And for the Braves, they are anywhere between minus 142 to a minus 156, plus 120 to plus 135 is that number on the Royals. And the Braves are a team that I'm going to be willing to lay with. Don't necessarily want the run line here, but set them at minus 163 on the money line. For Reynaldo Lopez, he had a really great season in 2024, was just injured throughout all of 2025, so you have to wonder how he comes back here, because in that 2024 campaign, $1.99 ERA, 292 fielding independence, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, had really never supplied below a 327 ERA as a starter prior to that, so do have to have a little bit of question mark there, but I think that he comes back in relatively good form. And then for Michael Wacha, he's just the, shall we say, steady Eddie veteran last season for the team. He didn't really get a lot of swing and miss, only 6.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 0.8 home runs, 2.3 walks per 9 innings. The classic keep things out in front of you sort of guy. And those are some of the guys that I like. And for the Royals, I'm being able to pick up Lucas Ercich in the back half of the season last year for that bullpen, I thought was really big. Additionally, you've got a bullpen that now has Matt Strahm in there as well. He was very solid for the Phillies over the last few seasons. Carlos Aceves, he's a top 5 closer in my opinion. Daniel Lynch is able to give you multiple innings. I do think that the Royals are going to be better with their lineup, as last year they were a bottom 8 team with regards to their run creation, but you've got Bobby Witt Jr., 25 plus home runs. He's going to hit for a 300 this season. You've got Jonathan India, who he just really struggled last season. I think that he finds it a little bit more here. Vinny Pasquantino had a rough start to the season last year, came on strong towards the back half with 32 home runs, hit about a 325 on base, but Salvador Perez has lost his ability to be able to move the line. What are you going to be able to get out of Jack Caglione after he hit below the Mendoza line of 200? Kyle Isabel was pretty miserable for this team as well. And then on the flip side for the Atlanta Braves, keep in mind in 2023, they averaged 5.75 runs per game, one of the most historic offenses in all of baseball. Now they're dealing with injuries once again. Ah-Sung Kim is right now dealing with an injury along with Sean Murphy, but Ronald Acuna Jr. being healthy, I mean, this guy is able to hit for north of a 400 on base, 30 plus home runs. He is absolutely incredible. Drake Alec Baldwin. He won Rookie of the Year last year. Felt like a little bit wrongfully over Kate Horton, but and still, guy was able to hit for some good power, hit above a 275 at the catcher spot. Matt Olson, 2 seasons ago, he had 40-plus home runs last year. He had that big drop-off. Is he able to return to form? Austin Riley, he dealt with injuries last season. Is he able to return to form? And for the Atlanta Braves, last season, the bullpen was very hot and cold. No longer do they have Pierce Johnson from a season ago, so that hurts the depth a little bit for the team. But you still have Tyler Kinley, who, with the Braves last season, a sub-225 ERA for them. I really like the pickup of Robert Suarez. He had a little bit of, shall we say, shakiness towards the back half of the season last year with Padres, but sub-3 ERA in 3 out of the last 4 seasons, one of the more reliable closers in all baseball. Can you get Rossio Iglesias back to form? Because he was terrible for much of the season last year, but Dylan Lee is able to give you a sub-375 ERA. Aaron Bummer, I believe, has a little bit of upside as well. So with the Atlanta Braves, I do think that Ronaldo Lopez might be a little bit limited here. You don't want to extend him too far, but I think that they get the job done here. So I told it at 8.3. So do like the Braves here on the money line, and seeing the total as at 8.5 in most spots, I'm going to be in on the under as well. 927, 928. You've got the Yankees on the road against the San Francisco Giants, as Tyler Mahle is on the bump for the Giants, and Will Bourne goes for the Yankees. Yankees are in between minus 118 to minus 125, and between plus 104 to plus 110 is that number on the Giants. 8 to 8.5 is the total on the 8. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. On that straight 8.5, the under is minus 120. Over is even. Somebody told it at 8.1. Personally, I would rather have the 8 over just because I do not trust in Will Bourne whatsoever. When he's been at the big league level across his 2 seasons, a 5.15 ERA overall. Last year, a 4.44 ERA. And if you look at the fielding independent, it was a little bit better than the ERA, but still giving up over 3.5 walks per 9 innings. He just doesn't do a great job in terms of managing his pitches. And then Tyler Mahle, it was a small sample size from last year with the Rangers, 21 starts, but he was absolutely magnificent. 2.18 ERA. Now, he did have a 3.37 fielding independent. String of missed stuff was not amazing, only about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but just a half a home run allowed per 9 innings. Now he plays in one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in all baseball, and for the Giants, well, they're going to need to pick it up with the offense. I think that they do, so I do think that Will Warren is going to be, for lack of a better term, a little bit of a stopper for the fact that the Giants scored 0 runs in their first 2 games. You do have a hot and cold lineup, but Luis Arias should be a nice stabilizer, guy that consistently hits right around about a 300. Willie Adames, he needs to be more consistent. Last season, he just did not move the line. Less than a 320 on base to give the team 30 home runs, but much of that came when the team was out of the playoff race. You've got a guy, Matt Chapman, who he's either the best hitter in all baseball or he's the worst. You don't get a lot of in between there. I do like Harrison Bader, Jung-Woo Lee in the outfield. These are 2 guys who are able to move the line, and Eloy Ramos last year was solid. He's been able to give the team between 19 and 20 home runs each of the last 2 seasons. As a matter of fact, 24 last season, about a 330 on base. So you know that you're going to get functional power there. And for the Yankees, it does feel like they're a little bit less all or nothing this season because they pick up Cody Bellinger. I thought that was a really good pickup for them, as he's a guy that's able to hit north of a 250. He's going to be able to give you some good functional power. Aaron Judge, after a rough start in night number 1, he was able to get his first home run on Friday, so that's good to see. Paul Goldschmidt seems a little bit washed, but I think that Ahmed Rosario has had a rough first 2 games of the season. He's going to be able to have a little bit of upside. Giancarlo Stanton has actually been able to do a good job hitting for some average. You've got Randall Grichuk out there, not a guy that I'm necessarily blown away by, but he's in sort of a timeshare with Trent Grisham. Really, really good depth with this Yankees lineup. And for the Yankees, they no longer have some of their relievers from a season ago. Luke Weaver is no longer there, but still like Camilo Udval, Fernando Cruz, guys that were able to give you a sub 375 ERA. Tim Hill is a guy that was really good for them last season, and Brent Hedrick, I think, is a little bit of an upside guy as well. Last season, he saw limited action, but 3.13 ERA in the action that he did see, so I think that that's going to be relatively solid. But again, just don't trust in Will Warren in the spot. And for the Giants, I do think that Tyler Mahle might not be quite as good as he was last season, but I think that they get the job done on the 8. I do like the over, and with the Giants, I did make them the favorite in this ordeal, so I'm going to take that plus money on the money line, and we wrap things up with 929, 930. The Detroit Tigers are on the road against the Slam Diego Padres. Randy Vasquez is on the bump for the Padres, and Captain Jack Flaherty is on the bump for Detroit. Detroit are between minus 113 to minus 120 favorites, even money to minus 102, seeing as good as plus 103. Then over on San Diego, 8.5 is the total, under is minus 120, and the over is even. And for the Detroit Tigers, set them as a mid-tier favorite here. I'm going to be willing to lay it. I set them at a minus 122, so want to go up to a minus 121. Jack Flaherty obviously gave up a little bit too much of the deep ball last season, but he still has really good swing and miss stuff, and out there in San Diego, balls that might be flying out in a lot of other parks are going to be able to stay in there, as last season for the Tigers, 1.3 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but 10.5 strikeouts and 3.3 walks per 9 innings, posted up a 4.64 ERA, but again, a 3.85 fielding dependent, so do think that there's some upside there. And Randy Vasquez, you want to talk about one of the most lucky pitchers in all of baseball last season. This guy last season posted up an ERA of a 3.84 with a fielding independent of a 4.85. Doesn't get any swing and miss whatsoever. 5.3 strikeouts, a 3.5 walks per 9 innings, but somehow, someway, he seemed to Houdini his way out of darn near everything. Now, he is backed up by a Padres bullpen that was number one by far in terms of bullpen ERA last season. Now, they do lose Robert Suarez, but you pick up Mason Miller at the trade deadline last season. Absolutely love what he's able to bring to the table, and it feels like he's really found a home here with the Padres. They are dealing with a few injuries in that bullpen. Jason Adam, Yuki Matsui, currently on the full, but Adrian Home is a good multi-inning guy. Wandy Peralta, he's not amazing, but he'll be able to fill some innings. Jeremiah Estrada, sub 350 ERA guy, and then with the lineup, I feel like it's deeper than it ever has been. Miguel Andujar is not going to give you a ton of power, but guy that can easily hit for a 275. Jackson Merrill was down a little bit last season. I think that he returns to that rookie form. Xander Bogaerts has been a waste of money, but Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., they're always good for 30-plus homers, hitting for north of a 270 out of both of them. Gavin Sheets is a guy with functional power as well. Ty France is a nice, shall we say, mixer and shaker for the team, and they finally figured out the catcher spot. Freddie Fermin, again, not a guy that's going to rip the cover off the ball, but is a guy that's able to give you some good functional singles, and for the Detroit Tigers, they've really got great balance when it comes to this lineup. Spencer Torkelson, 30-plus home runs. Kerry Carpenter at the top. He gives you 25-plus home runs, does a great job moving the line. Dylan Dingler is a guy that's going to give you 20-plus home runs. Gleyber Torres in that same neighborhood as well. Kevin McGonigal, I think that he's got a lot of upside as well. He and Cole Keith probably going to be in a little bit of a timeshare, but he went 4-5 in his first, shall we say, appearance for the Detroit Tigers. I really like what he brings to the table. Javi Baez was finally able to figure it out with the Tigers as well, and this is a bullpen that 2 years ago, they were doing such a great job with that bullpen madness. Took a little bit of a fall off last season, but I like the pickup of Kyle Finnegan towards back half of the season last year. Kenley Jansen is rough. That's not great, but Will Vest, Brent Herter, Tyler Holm, these are guys that can give you multiple innings. At their peak, they'll give you a sub 325 ERA, like what they bring to the table, and I think that allows the Tigers to be able to get the job done here. Set them as a minus 122 favorite, so like them on the money line. Somebody told us 7.7 because this is such a pitcher-friendly ballpark, so here at the 8.5, do like that under as well, and that'll wrap things up for the Saturday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to our guy, Johnny Venezia, who does such great work over at Rotowire and the Breaking Bet Podcast. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like cheering for this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GNet_D1. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please send these into the timeline. Other way is find an Apple Podcast review. You rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Coming at you guys every single day with picks and analysis on every game, every day, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.